Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Burnt Pancakes Podcast. I'm your host, Katie, and today we have a guest with me who I've known my entire life.
Whole 21
her
years.
Her entire life. Okay, yes.
Which is not very long. It was,
we're
like
so
I said,
young.
21 years.
Yes, we're so young. We're so young. It's my cousin, Heather. Hi, Heather. Hello. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited. This is going to be fun.
This is fun. Just wait. This is going to be fun. So Heather has a little girl who just went through a sleep regression. And as we were texting back and forth about it, helping her out, giving her some tips, we had some really funny stories about some of the crazy things we've done around child sleep, getting our babies to sleep. It's crazy. So,
yeah. And just so you guys are aware, again, of course, being cousin in the relationship we have, and she having 3 children, she's my first go-to. It'll be like middle of the night, and she's getting random text messages over the weirdest things. So
Been there, done that.
Appreciate the help.
I'm glad you can ask me for help because I suffered alone for a long time because I didn't know how to ask for help. So
I hear that a lot, actually, with some other mom friends. And I also just have no shame a lot of the times because I'm just don't have the patience. I'm like, I need to get through this and I need to get through it now.
Yes. Okay.
Who knows?
So let us know, how old is your little girl?
So Charlie just turned 18 months, 3 days ago, actually. 5 days ago. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, 5 days
Well, you're
ago.
still in the age where you're like by month. I'm like,
Yes.
my kids are not.
Which I'm also annoyed because before having a child, I was so,
That bugged you.
I hated that. I was like, I will never be that person. And now here
My
you
child
go.
is
It
27 months old. Now I have to do the math. Okay.
Yep. I'm there.
How is she
I'm there.
sleeping now? Are you through that little regression?
We are, and it was very terrible, as you know, because personally, I was going through some things that we can get into as well as my husband, and so yes, we were able to get through it. It took some time, and it felt like forever.
Yeah.
You know, when it was a couple weeks, felt like eternity. Felt like 4 months.
Oh my God, yes.
You know, so
Oh my gosh. When I had my first, I had a friend who had a little boy 2 months before me. And my son was like, I don't know, 5-6 weeks old. And so I would like text her like, oh, like help me. And I remember asking her like, when is he going to sleep again? And her response to my text was, honestly, ? Like, do you really want to know? And at the time I was like, yeah, tell me. And she's like, well, maybe by like 12 weeks, 3 months, he might be like sleeping better. That like killed me. I was like, wait, 3 months?
Mm-hmm.
Little did I know. Like, no.
Yeah.
Like my youngest is now 3, and I would say we're finally like, I can sleep in on a Saturday. Like,
oh yeah.
We're finally getting that sweet spot. So
we are lucky where we have figured it out to where she sleeps into our schedules, which is really nice.
Oh, you're so lucky.
I don't know how that's worked, but at the same time, going back to what you were talking about being 2 months into it, or your friend 2 months ahead of you, for us with Charlie, she would not sleep through the night until past 6 months.
Oh.
And you know, like you're saying, you're
So
hearing all these other parents being like, oh yeah, they're sleeping through the night. Oh
Like,
yeah, they're sleeping
what's
12
wrong
hours.
with me?
And I'm like, I'm getting 4-hour stretches.
Oh
and
my God.
I'm so happy with that. But at the same time, I'm miserable. And I'm Googling every single resource. I'm talking
What's
to
wrong
you.
with me? What am I doing wrong?
I was talking to my husband. I'm like, do we need a sleep consultant? Because this is kind of crazy, right? Where everybody else is seeming to figure it out, but we're not.
Yes.
And then you hear the same things over and over again. Oh, the bedtime routine and and I'm like, I'm doing all of that.
Oh my God. I think I sent you this meme where it was like, I finally got my child to sleep. And so your copy, like the temperature was 72.3 degrees. He is wearing the blue onesie. Yes. I have to mimic this exactly. Like I've done crazy things. Like I remember my youngest used to sleep in this room, the room we're in right now. And I thought it was too bright in his room. Like he had curtains drawn.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would put a towel on the door. Like what's that bottom part called? Like the door.
You're asking the wrong person.
The crack under the door. I would put a towel down thinking
door crack.
the light from the hallway, which there was no light on, would come in and wake him up. But in my mind, I thought, I have to make it dark enough in his room, and this is going to do it.
We were going through, actually, okay, again, trying to think of these crazy things where she was all of a sudden waking up, and it seems like in this like panic, right? Where you're like, oh my God, why is she crying and going crazy? Well, we would like turn on, I read that maybe she's afraid of the dark. Right, so we have the night light, the Hatch night light in there.
I've heard good things. I don't think that was around when I had kids, but Everyone now swears by it.
It's amazing because you can operate it from your phone too. So it's got it's Bluetooth. But hashtag hatch.
Kids nowadays, like, they don't know how good they have it.
I know. Honestly,
I didn't even
there's
know.
something for everything.
I didn't even know about sound machines when I had my first.
So
like we recorded.
You did your own.
Jake used to like.
You did record it,
and he recorded it on his phone so he could replay it because it got so tight. Like your lips hurt from going shh, and then you're like shh, like.
But I will tell you, even with the machines, I will tell you, it is still easier to shush louder than the cry. That's what I've had. Like, that's what my experience is. Because even with the hatch, I can change the volume up and down and get it really loud. But still, there's something about being right there in their ear and the comfort of holding them. I think that actually does more. So you're probably doing it right the whole time, even though we have all these cool gadgets. But yeah, so we used the hatch as a night light. Had that going, and that clearly didn't work because she was still waking up.
Oh my gosh.
And eventually I did talk to not a sleep consultant, but through my company, we had this organization that helped with a bunch of stuff. That could be like mom's going back to work, mom's getting ready to go on maternity leave.
You said that was through your insurance, right?
Not through my insurance, my company.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. It's called Maven, which was really, really great.
Oh my God, that's
so
amazing.
I could have instant access to a pediatrician. Also, they didn't necessarily have sleep consultants, but they had...
Didn't they have...
I guess they did have sleep...
Lactation
consultants.
So awesome.
Which I talked to... That was a big thing for me early on. And I think also with the sleep. So we found out about 6 months in, we were like, she has reflux.
How did you find that out?
Going through Maven, but I also talked to my pediatrician for a while, and she's like, monitor it. It sounds like reflux, and she would tell me, and she said, do these things like after I feed her to make sure she's up for like 30 minutes prior to try to prop her in a certain angle versus laying down when she's breastfeeding and so forth. But I was already doing all of those things, and it still wasn't quite working. What eventually started working is she turned 6 months, and we were like, okay, let's start solids. So solids got rid of huge difference. So she didn't have the reflux.
What were some of the symptoms, like now that you're aware that she had it?
She spit up a lot.
Okay.
And pretty frequently after a lot of feeds. And you and I, we could go through the breastfeeding thing too, because you helped me very much through all of that. She, heavy flow for her. So I think it was just getting a lot of air and combination of a few things.
Oh my God, breastfeeding.
Yep. I know.
Another
I don't
thing
miss
that
it.
you have to learn.
Something that is like so weird now that I'm not doing it. It's so natural when you do it.
I feel the same
when
way.
I step away, I'm like,
when I was doing it, I could like do it at the park, like no problem. But now I see someone else doing it, I'm like,
yeah,
I don't miss that.
Right.
But when I was doing it, it was the sweetest thing.
Right.
Like, so yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just trying to work through the different anecdotes, but the different methods that my pediatrician had suggested that could help. But really, it was once she started solids, things were sitting down and settling more. So once that was able to happen, she was able to sleep. Again, it was after 6 months, the full first 6 months.
Yeah.
I was lucky where as far as like the night feedings, all of that wasn't as difficult as I think the reflux that was waking her up and
oh my gosh. And I just remember being
the rest of us up.
So tired. Like so tired my body hurt.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're up at 5 a.m. and you were up at 3 a.m. You like calculate how much sleep you got.
Yeah.
And you're like, I hurt right now.
I hate to say this because I am the type of person that I don't need a lot of sleep, so it really never bothered me as much.
God, it totally bothered me.
But
it's so hard.
I think, talking about the most recent regression where it's been difficult is going through some health issues. I haven't been able to actually tend to her in the middle of the night. And my husband is the one that has to do it. Well, my husband's the type of person that needs a full 8 hours of sleep or he's miserable. Yes. And the rest of us are miserable too then, right?
Yeah.
And
so
just been interesting.
Hear her right away? Because my husband does not hear.
It's like they tune it out instantly.
My kids roll over. I could hear them.
I heard her breathing. I heard something last night on the monitor.
Gosh.
I was like, "Do you hear that? Do you hear that?" And guess what? I have a message out to my pediatrician right now because I'm like, and of course it's like a Friday, but I'm like, can you call me? Because I'm like curious about this noise I was hearing that is probably like absolutely nothing. It could have maybe not even been her.
I mean, I hear every noise. Everything. And, like last night, Maverick peed in his bed last night, which is pretty rare for him now, but it was like, Mommy. And so I'm like, instantly I got up, changed the sheets, changed the clothes, put him back in bed. And in the morning, my husband's like, why is he wearing different pajamas? I'm like, did you not hear? Like, he peed in the bed, and I changed it, and I started the washing machine, and I changed all his. He's like, oh, he did? And I'm like, I wish I were you. I wish I didn't hear this.
It's like that meme that you see, or like that little like skit where like TikTok where it's like, oh, apparently you can't hear the baby from my husband's side of the bed, so I'm gonna try it out. And it's so accurate.
It's so true. And like, God bless him. I think it's just like women's, our biological makeup. You have a baby, and it's like
all of our sensors are going off when you hear just like a tiny lip.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I'm at the point where now I'm like, I heard him, I'll get up.
Yeah.
Like, no big deal.
Right.
I do remember, oh my gosh, when Ronan was he was like 9 months old. He was able to stand up in his crib, but he was going through this phase like he could not put himself to sleep. And Jake and I literally laid in his room because he needed us in there, but he just wanted us in there. So we were so tired. We laid on the ground, and he laid down. He was fine because he saw us in there. And like an hour later, 2 hours later, we woke up like holding hands on the floor. And we're like, oh my God, what are we? He's asleep. Sneak out of the room. But I'm like, I can't believe like we're laying on our kids' floor. But it's like I was so desperate for sleep. That was like, I'll do anything right now.
Absolutely. So it's funny you say that because that's actually one of the most recent things that happened with us, and partially because Tim's my husband.
We loved him. We loved him.
He's the greatest. His back went out at the time that I had gone through surgery, and I'm unable to pick her up or even move at this point because I had surgery on my leg. And so next thing you know, he's able to get her out of the crib, but he can't physically hold her at this point. And, this is one of a major regression that we were dealing with where it got very difficult, even within our marriage at some point, right? We're arguing with each other over the simplest things because we're
tired,
so tired,
you're frustrated.
And all of our frustrations around her not sleeping, really.
Yeah.
Everything else outside of that's fine.
Yeah.
But again, going back to Tim needs 8 hours of sleep. So he's able to get her out of the crib.
Oh my gosh.
And ends up just being like, puts her on the ground, on the rug, and he laid with her, but then he couldn't get up. But he's just like rubbing her back and fell asleep. And then here's the part that I laugh and don't call Child Protective Services on us. But Tim walks out of the room, closes the door, and left her on the rug for a little bit. She was asleep. Just so she could get in a really sound sleep, and he could pick her up and then put her in the crib.
You'll do anything. Yes.
Anything. And so, the next day, like at that time, he's frustrated. I'm frustrated. I feel for him. I can't help. I also don't want to interject because he's doing his best, right? But then it also becomes this like volcano of animosity a little bit, right? But yeah, so we laughed the next day because we're like, oh my God.
I can't believe
you left our child on the rug in her. I mean, it's a clean rug. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, it's just, you
do anything.
You do anything.
Anything. Yeah.
And she slept the rest of the night. So we're like, okay, something worked.
I mean, still to this day, if mine don't sleep well, I'm like, this is why you're grumpy. You should have slept in more. Maverick this morning, I was like, well, you were up at 6 a.m. So yes, of course you're grumpy right now.
Charlie's 18 months and I do that to her. I guilt her. I was like, well, you're whining and you're crying. You're tired, aren't you?
You should have slept better last night, little one. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, mom fail. When Jet's my middle, when he was like a year and a half, he all of a sudden started going through this like horrible, like waking up at like 3 a.m. And I'm like, you've been good for a while. Like, this is not like you. And it was going and going. And then one day he woke up with like goopy eyes. And I was like, oh, shoot, you have pink eye. Oh my gosh. So I take him to the doctor's thinking he has pink eye. And the doctor like looks him over and goes, no, he has a double ear infection. Did you not catch that? And I was like,
clearly not.
They always say like if they have ear infections, they like pull on their ear or they have like a fever. He didn't have anything other than he was not sleeping well. And it was like he couldn't get himself back to sleep. Now looking back, I'm like, oh, his ears hurt and he was crying because he was in pain. Oh, but I was like, oh, double ear infection. Okay, antibiotics, sleeping just fine after that.
Oh, see the first,
but it was like 2 weeks of like. He had an ear infection for 2 weeks, and and you were sleeping so bad. I was like, I'm so sorry.
But see, I could clearly be in your position because we have yet to have. We've had a cold with Charlie, and that is literally it. We haven't had anything else.
Oh.
So I'm
Once
sitting
she
here,
starts
I put
preschool, get
the
ready.
thermometer to her head all the time, and I'm like, anytime she's teething. She's
right. It's always teething.
Always
It's
teething.
Always teething.
And then the best part
You're
is,
like feeling your mouth. I swear there's a tooth coming.
I know,
in.
but the best part is even when she is teething, I'm like, is she hungry? Does she have a fever? I do everything else but teething. So poor kid, sitting there miserable.
It's always
for 2
fun.
hours.
It's not that
until I
they're
figure
just
it out.
normal kids,
right?
Because like with Ronan, I thought there's something wrong with him. Like, why isn't he sleeping better? Well, after 2 kids, I realized like, oh, he was a newborn.
Yeah.
And like, you can't put a newborn, like a 2-week-old, on a schedule. I had Baby Wise. Did you ever read that? Baby Wise?
No.
Great information, but it stressed me out.
Really?
It was basically like eat, sleep, play. Like, you like follow the schedule of like, they wake up, they eat, they're awake for when, But it was like, it had like sample schedules. And so I looked at the 2-week-old sample schedule, and like when my baby didn't sleep 2 hours at a nap, he slept like 30 minutes. I was like, oh no, you're off your schedule. What do I do? And like all of like the veteran moms were like, he's a newborn. It's okay. Just like go about your day. And I was like, no, the book says he needs to be on this schedule.
It's interesting.
Oh my God.
It's interesting you say that, because early on, and of course, first time mom here, right? I was absolutely all about like what I've read online, and I've Googled and read everything from the books.
You
all talking
are
about
so prepared
this
/ not prepared.
Yes, but the best sleep, I feel, and just kind of even for me mentally, is when I talked to one mom, and she was like, I don't go by any of it. I just go by off of their cues, or by their cues. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I do too.
What are their cues?
That's exactly what I do. And then I'm like, okay, that's fine. I guess I don't think I am. I think I am trying to be too by the books and too scheduled.
Yeah.
And once I let go a little bit, we started to actually like
get it now.
Give into it, because also we dealt with the reflux, like 30-minute naps, and we're like, she's supposed to be sleeping an hour.
It's like she's supposed to take good long naps.
And we were just never getting that. And so finally we were just kind of going with it and just being like, you know what, if she's gonna be on a 4-hour nap schedule longer than maybe expected, then that's what it is.
Yeah.
And then it actually cut back really fast, and she actually got to a 1 nap schedule faster than a lot of kids. She was right there around like 11 months, 12 months. Wow. She got down to 1 nap.
Yeah, that was sooner than I think, if I can remember back.
I know. Yeah. Well, now even it hasn't been that long, but at the same time, I know a lot of kids our age were still around the 2 naps. I mean, they started transitioning, I think, to the 1 nap after from 12 months. Like
I found
14,
it very hard because
18.
my boys, like that morning nap, if we were anywhere near the car, they would fall asleep during that morning nap. And I'm like, no, we're trying to like cut that nap, but it was so hard. Mm-hmm. Like I wanted to go places. Yeah. Like we're going to go to the park, but for our 2-hour car ride or 2-minute car ride, they would fall asleep. And
yep.
I'm like, no.
Well, I'm a big extrovert, if you might not be able to tell.
Same. Yes. I have to get out of the house.
So I met up with another mom, and we're like, we're going to brunch, because her daughter's like 6 weeks younger than my daughter. And we were good friends from work, and we're like, let's do it. We're doing it. Get out. So we did. We got together. We had brunch, and I know we pushed it a little bit too long. But you're in the car, and I'm like singing as loud as I can, trying to tickle her, like anything like that, anything,
throwing toys
and it just
at them.
Did not happen. She just, submitted.
That was a hard thing for me. Like when I'd see him sleep in the car, I would get pissed.
Yeah.
Like, darn it, I wore you out at that park, and I deserve a good nap at home. And you're gonna wake up the second I get home.
Yep.
Like,
so I didn't go straight home, because I only had a 15-minute drive home. I ended up just like driving through the hills of all of these in this neighborhood that I really like, and then finally it came to a point where I was like, I'm just gonna pull over and keep the car on.
I've done that before.
And I'm just scrolling through Instagram, and if you hear it, put it on mute.
Yes. One time I did that on the way home from work. I was like in my driveway, and he was asleep, and I was so tired. So I'm like, I'm just gonna like close my eyes in the driveway too until he wakes up. And I was so worried. My neighbors, I totally fell asleep. I took a nap in the car, but I was like, my neighbor's gonna see me and think, no, I wasn't in the driveway. I was like parked in the garage with the door open. But I was like, if my neighbor sees me, he's gonna think I lost my mind.
Right.
I was like, no. Okay,
there's a mother on limited sleep right there.
I'm like, I'm so tired. I'll sleep anywhere. I think what saved me with my other 2, with Jet, I like threw every book away, and I was like, I'm I'm just going to like not go by anything.
Mm-hmm.
He's the kid that I held during every single nap because I was like, I'm so tired. I've got my 3-year-old sleeping. If he naps in my arms, like I know they say you're not supposed to, but I needed a nap every day. He is my best sleeper to this day. Like he hits the pillow and falls asleep and sleeps the latest.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, so I did do something right.
Yeah.
With Maverick, before my 3rd, I was like, we need to have a better sleeper. So I did the Taking Care of Babies course.
Oh, yes.
Oh my, that was
I follow her on Instagram, and even just the few little things that she would plug in there. I'm like, how did you know I needed to hear that right now?
And my favorite thing is she's like, don't feel guilty if you hold your baby.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You are the best mom. Like you are there for your baby and you can do that. It's just like she made me feel empowered. Like I now have the skills that I need and so that helps a lot.
I think that's what's hard is like going also, of course you hear everybody's baby is sleeping perfectly and yours is not. But the mom shaming or the mom guilt when you do something differently that is, against status quo, right? Or how everybody else is doing it, but it works. I think you just have to stick to that. If it feels right, you just have to go with it. Yeah. So, I've had plenty of contact apps that, again, when we're going back to, she had reflux and we're only getting 30 minutes. If she's going to be on me and I'm a sweaty mess and I got 45, I am happy. Yes. We're happy. We're doing it. We're doing good.
Yeah. So. Don't you wish you could go back? Like, I wish I could go back to my new mom self, like me as a new mom, and just be like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get it. It's fine. Let me hold the baby for you. I'll hold him for you,
One thing that I wish I did while I was pregnant, actually, is I read a lot of books, but it was all about pregnancy and all this. And all these are like, duh. So I disengaged with those books so quickly. But I wish, and they are out there. I just haven't found one. So maybe I have a suggestion. But looking into, okay, what do you do once you have a baby and you're coming home from the hospital? Because it's like, everyone's like, oh my God, they let me leave.
I know.
This is for real.
I kind of panicked when I got home.
Yeah.
I was like, how do we keep this thing alive?
Right.
Yeah.
Never done this before in my life. And they trust me with this? What?
We did the class at the hospital, but it was like...
Yeah, see, we didn't even
on
do
a
that.
Friday night. Oh, because yours was during COVID, right?
Yeah.
They weren't offering.
Yeah.
I bet there's a lot of like online resources
There
like
were.
Online classes.
There were, and I think we just actively just disengaged because we were such in this like honeymoon phase as far as like, we'll do it our way and it's going to be so great. Yeah. And then, 2 months after having a baby, we can't sleep. Yeah. Trying to figure it out.
Or like I know now, well, I'm still learning, but how to ask for help.
Yeah.
Like I should have just said, Mom, come over and spend the night. Like help me out. But I didn't know how to ask that.
Yeah.
I'm a woman. I can do this.
Well, we recently did that. Again, going back to Tim having a back problem and me having leg surgery. Over? Oh my gosh, at 8 o'clock at night. And of course, Paul. Paul had to drive her.
Her dad.
Yeah.
My uncle.
Paul's my dad. Betty's my mom. But
the best.
But it's, at this point, we can't get her down. I can't help in any way. Tim is just miserable with his back and he just won't admit it. He's super stubborn. And then, so finally, he doesn't even know. He's in there. He was probably, I don't know if it was him crying or Charlie. But,
I have for sure cried about baby sleep.
But I call my mom and it's 7:45 at night. And so she's supposed to be in bed already, Charlie. And I'm like, Mom, I need help. And she's like, we'll come pick her up. She'll sleep at our house. Oh, and it was wonderful. My mom's like, she slept great.
Of course she did.
Of course she did.
Of course.
At Oma's house, Oma and Opa's. Oh, but it was so nice of them. And at the same time, like Tim and I talked about it that night where we're like, we just have to be more willing and accepting of help. Yeah. Willing to ask, accepting of help because people do want to help you.
Oh yeah,
genuinely.
Sometimes it's hard to know what to ask.
Right.
And
it's like I know your kid too. Like you have to be kind of. It's like prideful because it's like this is my kid. I could take care of my kid. I could do this.
Yes.
But in that situation, it was like no, Tim needs to take care of himself. I need to take care of myself. If we can't be good parents at this point in time. It doesn't work. So it was so nice to be able to lean on my mom to do that. So they come knocking on the door 8 o'clock at night.
That's amazing.
Grab her and she ended up sleeping over at their house for 2 nights and it worked out well because then we were able to we were rested and in the right mind where I was like, Tim, we need to start sleep training again because we did sleep training earlier and now we really actively did it. We did the cry it out method and we were 2 days maybe. God, and the first day was maybe 45 minutes of crying. Second day was 20 And then she's been sleeping through the night since.
Oh,
and this was
amazing.
recent. This was recent. This
Amazing.
was like around 16 and a half, 17 months. So this was not that long ago. But
it's real fresh still.
Very
like
fresh.
For me, it's kind
trauma,
of like
PTSD.
No, like I'm starting to slowly forget how bad it was. You know, it's like, oh, that wasn't that bad, right? Like I still have like, you know, memories of it. But it's slowly getting like, that wasn't as bad. It's like when my mom, like when we talked to her about like, was this so hard? She's like, I just remember enjoying it. But I'm like, it had to have been horrible.
Horrible.
We had to have been
So
terrible, right? I mean, I was perfect, but like, you know.
Well, I know I was not perfect. I keep hearing stories because now I drop
Okay, that's for another podcast.
I know. I hear it all the
episode.
time. Oh, you know what she did today reminded me of you. Like, okay.
Sweet little Charlie.
And it's always the stubborn and like the bad things that it's like, oh, we saw you coming out. I'm like, what did I do to you guys?
I don't even see it.
Trauma. My parents have trauma.
And he's even like, oh, it has not gone yet. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's think about, were there any products or things that did actually work for you? Like like the Ollie Swaddle that I found.
Oh, the Ollie Swaddle was great.
That I found when I had my third. I was like, this thing works. Because my husband was so good at swaddling.
Yeah.
But when he would go to work and like not be home in time for bedtime, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like you did the perfect swaddle. I need you here.
It must be a guy thing because Tim does a great swaddle too. And similarly. So
maybe I'm just afraid of like doing it too tight. And he just like wraps them in there and like tucks them in and is like, you are going to bed. Like you are sleeping through the night in this. The Ollie Swaddle gave me like the same feel. So
I love the Ollie Swaddle. That I got from you actually.
Yes. Okay.
You could always tell when Tim put her down for a nap versus me because he was always about, you know, the receiving blankets, you know, and I was Ollie.
But totally. I think Jake, he was like, I refuse to use that because like he was like, that's a cheater way of doing it. And I was like, oh no.
I will cheat.
I will cheat all I want if this gets my kid to sleep.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Okay. And you said the Hatch.
The Hatch is really great. And I think a lot of moms actually do use that. So that one's great. We had that. There's a shusher machine that literally you could set it for 15 or 20 minutes. I don't know what it's probably called.
Oh, like a sound machine?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would put it right by her bed when the Hatch maybe wasn't working because what it does, it goes shh.
Oh gosh, I'm falling asleep now.
Right, there you go.
Well, it is kind of late.
It's blissful. But yeah, so that I used that for a minute when I was trying to make things work. What else?
Still have a sound machine in my kids' room. So my boys,
I don't know when you're supposed to get rid of them.
My boys
right?
all share. Well, I'm doing it just because I'm like, they all share a room.
Yeah.
And one tends to like get up before the other one. So I'm like, if it's going, then maybe they won't hear each other.
Yeah.
So
I've also heard too that, and of course I'm no expert on this, but it's more about like when they start saying, no, I don't want this too.
Yeah. And mine have not told me to turn it off.
Because at the same time, I mean, I'm 21 years old and
it's
I love having a sound machine, like the monitor with the sound machine. I'm like,
it's nice and soothing. I also put on, my oldest has a hard time going to sleep, but we kind of like put them all together and put them to bed at the same time. Mm-hmm. And there's on Spotify a Minecraft meditation.
Oh, perfect.
Yes. And it's literally like, now pick up the blue box and stack it on top of the green box. I went in there one day and I was like, what is happening in here? But they're like so chill. So I'm like, that's another one.
Whatever works.
Maverick still like, I still put a blanket over his crib. He calls it his house.
Hey.
And I'm like, yeah, that's going to make it nice and dark in your room. So I have a blanket over his crib.
Have you ever tried during bath time doing any of the lavender calming? I don't even know if they have it for kids right now. Yeah, they do for the bubble bath, but
so I've
whatever got just doesn't work.
Oh, yeah. In the bath, Aveeno makes a lavender one. And I like lathered them in that stuff. I don't know if it necessarily works, but my middle, this is the weirdest story. Okay. He had a dream that he was covered in spiders and like it literally freaked him out. He woke up in the middle of the night, could not go back to sleep. And so the next day I told him, oh yeah, they don't like lavender. So if you put a drop on your pillow, one, it helps him sleep.
Yeah.
But in his mind, he was like, oh, okay. And to this day, it's been now like 4 months. Every night before he goes to bed, he goes like, Mommy, I need lavender. And I'm like, yes, let me go get some. And I don't know if that's like feeding into it, but I'm like,
whatever works, you know, because sometimes it's just mental. Because think about ourselves when we're trying to go to sleep. It's like, I talked to my husband about this because he wakes up a lot and he's a really bad sleeper and then he can't go back to sleep. I wake up all the time and go back to sleep.
Me too.
But think about like what we talk about with kids and their mind and shutting it down and, you know, having a routine because to process and calm down, we don't do that for ourselves. So it's like, just think about like, okay, if the lavender's working or this, I'm going to do it.
I'll buy
a
gallon of it.
Right.
We're
Again, it could be mental,
night.
but at the end of the day, if it's working for him,
I'll
like,
use it.
Use it. Do it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think we learned a thing or two about sleep.
Yeah,
that it's required for parents to function.
Right, exactly. And I think the biggest takeaway for me and learning and dealing with sleep is every child is different, and we always will go to the internet. I will always go and compare. It's just in our nature. But if we could just like silence that and just, I think that helped me at the time like really hone into what was going on, being like, I'm doing all these things and that's not working. So like, really, what is it? Or maybe it just is what it is. They're going through regression. So try to figure it out. But you know, sometimes you just have to go with it and just knuckle down.
I'll let you know, by the age of 3, they start sleeping better.
That is nice.
But it is like the worst thing to tell someone like, oh, in 3 years you'll sleep again.
I know.
But now that I'm here, I'm like, so
well, even right now, after going through sleep training, which we probably should have done sooner than we did, but again, we weren't capable. We were having other people help out. It needed to just be my husband and myself focusing on it, right, and dedicating to it, that we were able to do it. And she's sleeping through the night.
Yay.
So, you know, she's
keep it that way.
Yeah, it's been nice. But again, it took a while where we were in a really bad place, just non-functioning, where we were just so miserable and so stressed out about it. And, you know, it's one of those things, it's the definition of insanity.
Oh, yeah.
We're all doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. But the thing is sometimes that day it works.
Yes.
Then the next day it doesn't.
And
right?
just repeat it.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I remember too when they were little and you were like, okay, they slept 4 hours. So the next day you expect 4 hours and they wake up after 3 hours. You're like, no, but yesterday you slept 4. Like, what are you doing? Yes.
Yeah. So just go with it at the end of the day. So maybe you didn't learn anything, but at the same time, all kids are different. Just kind of go with it. You'll figure it out. Yeah. They'll sleep eventually. If they're not, there might be something underlying there, and just ask questions. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And just know, like, if your baby's not sleeping, there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
Like, yes. I felt that way. I felt like, what am I doing wrong? And it was like, he's just a baby.
Yep.
And this is what babies do.
Yep. They're all tuned into their own channel. They just don't let us in.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. Well, thank you for coming on and talking about baby sleep.
So fun.
I remember as we were texting about this, we were like, I'm dying here. This is too funny. So.
Yeah.
Okay, let's remind everyone that everyone burns the first pancake. So
just keep flipping.
Just keep flipping. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks, Katie. It's been fun.